Hi, I'm Lynn Richmond, Advisory Council on Historic Preservation Communications and Public Affairs Specialist. Welcome to Preservation Perspectives, the ACHP podcast. November is Native American Heritage Month, and the ACHP works to foster relationships with American Indian tribes and Native Hawaiian organizations. In this episode, ACHP Chairman Aimee Jorjani speaks with Reno Keoni Franklin, ACHP Indian Tribe member and Chairman of the Native American Affairs Committee. Franklin, from Santa Rosa, California, is Tribal Chairman Emeritus of the Kashayo-Pomo Tribe. Now, here are Aimee Jorjani and Reno Keoni Franklin.
Reno, thank you for being with us today. It's always good to see you. As our Native American, Native Hawaiian member of the ACHP, you uniquely fit both roles. As chairman of the Native American Affairs Committee, what do you see as the for historic preservation for Indian tribes?
Oh man, that's a great question, Amy, and it's good to see you as well. I hope all is going good for you guys out there on the East Coast and experiencing less craziness than we are here on the West Coast. When you think about challenges for Indian tribes, and especially around historic preservation, there are some reoccurring themes that have come up in the years for my committee, for our committee, and a lot of them, kind of start with consultation, and I think that if we look at consultation through the lens of tribal eyes, it wears many hats. It touches all aspects of historic preservation, and it can do great things for us or great things to us, and so I think that that's where we would start at. I think that there's issues around consultation when it comes to funding for tribes and for historic preservation, especially for TIPOs and for tribes that, especially those tribes that don't have TIPO status. It gets even harder for them to manage large pieces of land or small pieces of land and sites that are on it, and when it comes to the planning portion of tribal projects or reservation projects or any kind of other federal undertaking that affects a tribe and a historic or prehistoric resource. It gets to be that part of consultation kind of sometimes gets lost. We do some things right. We do some things that we could do a little better on. I think that the other stuff that comes up around consultation is just site avoidance, and where there can be inconsistencies in the way that consultation is applied, agency by agency or project by project, and sometimes they get it right 100%, and you could just, this is the demonstration project, and there's some where you kind of look at it and you go, well, maybe you could have done a little better on that. I've got a tribe down in the desert right now in Southern California where the monitors have to walk in 3 miles every single day to go monitor a project. And when you think about, people driving by them to go to the same project, but these monitors are walking. And mind you, like I said, this is in the desert. This isn't in, the nice Northern California forest where it's nice and cool. It's hot down there. And, it's fall, but they've been doing it since the summer. So you kind of think about some of the things that we miss and the places that we miss, or asking a tribe that to have their monitors do that. Some of these things, I think that if there was more planning and more consultation or over a longer period of time, that it fixes that and it avoids it. I think that through consultation, we learn how to mitigate any potential issues that could come up during these projects. And, that early consultation helps us to avoid our resources. And I think at the end of the day, those resources for tribes, the history of the tribes belong first to the tribes, but second to us as a nation as a whole. And we'll protect our historic resources and our prehistoric resources that belong to tribes. The best way to do that is through consultation. And so I really think that, when we kind of start to narrow down what are the issues that have faced us in the committee and that have been raised, it all starts with consultation. And like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it helps us and sometimes it hurts us. And we've heard the issue of inconsistencies before. We've also seen a number of projects that have been highlighted because of great consultation. And I think that if we shed more light on those projects, then we create a better path for agencies to follow, or private companies, and for other tribes. They're wondering, hey, how did you get this done? Right? Well, we talked for years before this project came about. So yeah, I would hope that, in the coming years that we just continue to better that. I know that I've seen a betterment in that process in the years that I've been doing historic preservation and working with ACHP and on it.
Was the Native American Affairs Committee involved with the early consultation handbook that was released in this past about a year ago?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the pieces of work that I think that we're all proud of in ACHP, not just us, but certainly the Native American Affairs Committee. I know Valerie and her hard work that she does to make sure that when we're looking at large documents or any document that it's prepared for us to really deep dive into and get opinions. And of course, with the Native American Affairs Committee, whenever we do these kind of we have a document like that, we're talking to tribes and we're getting their opinions too, and so I think that when you have a document that reflects not just ACHP, but also, tribal leadership, and I think it speaks a lot to just the collaboration and the work that we all do to get these kinds of things done, and really help not just tribes, but help others to understand as well what consultation looks like, especially the very, very important early consultation that takes place.
Obviously, I'm guessing these efforts predate the National Historic Preservation Act, but in your opinion, how have Indian tribes enriched the field of historic preservation?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And you asking it, it's kind of cool. I feel like Alex Rodriguez at a slow pitch softball game, right? It's just you're lobbing it out there for me. So, in so many ways, but I think that when I first saw that you were going to ask me this question, I had like 20 different responses, and I kind of wrote them down, and I was thinking to myself, this one's great, this one's better, this one's not, and then threw them all away and just said that, while historic preservation in the modern sense, NHPA and the efforts, from the Antiquities Act and before that had looked at ways of preserving America's history and past, I think that, the foundation for that is tribes. And, as the spiritual caretakers of the land, which is what every tribe is, there has to be this merging and a merging of not just between the spiritual caretakers of the land, but the physical or the political owners of the land today, which would be, the government or entities that are non-tribal. And I think that when you look at history and you look at the contributions of American Indians and what they mean to historic preservation, what they mean to the history of the country, that when you merge those two things, you realize that they have to both work together. You have to have that sense of duty and responsibility that exists with American Indian tribes to preserve not just the land and not just what we would call history of the land, but the spirit of the land, which encompasses all things that are historic preservation, those cultural sites, those sacred sites, those gathering places, the places of sad history, and the places where we rejoice. It all comes into focus in that one little point, and at that point, that's where we meet, and that's where the history of tribes and the history of this country meet is right there, and so I think that as far as tribes go and our piece and what we represent to historic preservation, and in the movement both that started long before there was NHPA or any laws. I think it's more of what should be a celebration of the two, and I think that sometimes it's not. But I think that for the most part, we learn our lessons from the mistakes that we make, And we make far more celebrations than we do, being on opposite sides of the fence from each other, of historic preservation. So, at tribes, we play a real key and a real important role, and there can be no interpretation of a tribal site without a tribe, and we would be the caretakers of those places. So it's good. It's good to have us meet and on friendly ground when we do. That's when real beautiful projects take place.
And I suppose it's in similar sense that it's all for future generations.
Yeah. 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 I know that we never had ceremonies for reburial in my tribe, right? I can't speak for all tribes. I'm always careful not to. I am from Kashaya Pomo, and my mom, being born and raised on Molokai, Hawaii, being of Makaiwi Ohana. It's interesting that both sides of my family were always really strict about that. We don't have these kind of ceremonies for these kinds of things. And so when we talk about like future generations, a lot of it, we're still in the process of creating, but then isn't that what history is? It's always evolving. It's always creating. And I think it's good to look back and find solutions to the problems that move forward. And I think that that's what we're doing.
What has the ACHP done to work with Indian tribes during this pandemic? I know it's this virtual settings actually benefited me from being able to work with you more, but issues kept arising related, I think, to this.
So it's good to be a part of an agency, not the biggest agency of all federal agencies, but one with the largest voice. And especially during these times, the ACHP has been a great partner to tribes during COVID. And Aimee, you in particular, and that needs to be called out. And the appreciation that we have both as tribal leaders, as traditional practitioners, and as like myself, just run-of-the-mill average Indian dude just walking around and trying to fish. There's suggested recommendations for best practices that we put out in a letter between 4 tribes and federal agencies during COVID, that had good suggestions in there to maintain communication and, how to have these public meetings that in many cases, not public, but meetings between tribes and federal agencies that while the clock is ticking on some of these consultations, we have to find creative ways to do. And I think that, we as a federal agency did a good job of talking to our other agencies and saying, hey, here's some suggested ways of doing that. And it's great because I've actually benefited from that myself, working with my own tribe and then working on fire lines after that and trying to assess damages. So, and I think probably one of the things that I'm going to walk away from my time on the ACHP, looking back, and we've done a lot of stuff, but the thing I'm the most proud of was the work that we did as ACHP, and Aimee, you directed staff to help us and the National Indian Health Board, and we came up with burial protocols for tribes during not protocols but recommendations for tribes during the COVID-19 pandemic, and ACHP played a huge part in that we were able to use our network to reach out to other areas in Indian country so that it was a more broader focused, it was a nationally focused document instead of just California and just New Mexico or just here or just there. That paid huge benefits, and it was such a tough topic to take on, and I think a lot of us have recently lost friends. I know I did, to COVID. And then since, there's been so many funerals in Indian country, and I have had a lot of people reach out asking for that document just because it had suggestions in there, and it couldn't have been done the way that it was without the help of ACHP. So I think that we think about, all the things that the ACHP that we're doing to help tribes during these times and maintaining, some of the conversations that we would normally have, and trying to be business as usual as much as possible during these crazy times, that people see the larger documents that come out, but they don't see the work that our staff is doing behind the scenes to make sure that they're there to answer questions. But when you put all of that together, and then you add this amazing, honorable piece of work that we all were able to assist with, that's legacy stuff right there. There's never going to be any agency that's ever going to take the time to tackle such a tough topic, during such complicated times. But we did, and I'm so proud of that document. Just really, really proud of it. And I think that, Aimee, you should be as well, and all of our staff should be as well. And we did a good thing there. So I think, overall, the work that we as an agency have done for tribes during COVID has been superb, and something that we should stand on and be very proud of. And I have not heard one complaint from a tribe about the work that we've done during COVID-19, but a lot of people know it. And doing these live trainings that we're doing, and Section 106 trainings that would have been in person, but now we're making them free online. I mean, people are really reacting to this, and not just tribes, in the sense of American Indians, but also, Native Hawaiians as well. And so proud of that work. Proud of you for your part in that work as well, Aimee. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Thank you, Reno. Yeah, that Indian Health Service collaboration was really a heavy learning experience, but it was such a great collaboration. Just everyone dove in, and I think a lot of people can relate to it, but at the same time, there was no doubt that there were, so many more challenges going on in Indian country related to this. And just really brought it closer to home, having done that. In addition to that, you spent the last few months fighting wildfires in California. You might as well have a Superman shirt on while you're doing this. How have those fires impacted cultural sites important to Indian and tribes? You personally have gone above and beyond in your state related to this, but you're just doing this on a more regular basis, obviously, as well.
Yeah, I think that if you reflect on the service that you provide to your community, it starts at home, and then it branches out, and if you're lucky, then you get to do national work. It's blessed work. And for me, being a firefighter, and which seems like a very long time ago, and being forced back into portions of that position constantly now, more frequently than I would like to be. I think that just looking at that, my first reaction to it is not quite tears, but it affects me differently, I think, than a lot of people. It's hard. It's hard to be in areas and see, friends' homes burned, or houses that you grew up playing at burned, or seeing an entire reservation burned completely to the ground. It's hard to see that, and we have ceremony for these things, because if you can't internalize it. And I think that's where this all starts at, the need to serve, the responsibility to serve, the responsibility you have to your own community and the communities around you. And like I said, whether it's local or statewide or national, there's a responsibility that if you're blessed to get that responsibility, then you have to step up. And I'm blessed to have opportunities to, assist with coordination of how do we continue to avoid resources during recovery phases? How do we avoid, cultural resources during fire suppression activities? And it's tough, I know that my own tribe had a fire this summer. It was really close to us, and there were multiple sites that had dozer line going right through it. And you hear the horror stories, and you also realize in some of these fires, they're moving so fast that if they don't put something somewhere, then people are going to die, and So there's this balance that has to be struck. And when it comes time to strike the balance, it's important that we have elders to talk to, because I don't, I'm not, I don't have permission to be the guy that fixes these things when it happens. But I do have elders that do have that permission, so I can go and talk to them and say, hey, what do I do? You guys don't want to look at this. It's bad. There's dozer lines everywhere, and it zapped out some sites. So what do we do? And then it starts a thought process and kind of a, did man make this fire, or was it, Yakeapade? In the case of our case, it was lightning. And so it was different. It's like, so every tribe's different, but I think that, when I'm up there, boy, and it's been some hairy situations this year, when you're up there and you're doing that, and we had to bring, on one reservation as a part of, the recovery process for fires to clear an area, they'd have to bring cadaver dogs in and look for dead bodies and make sure that there aren't any inside of these burned out, down to the foundation, places and homes. And so having to go out with those crews, as they do their work, to make sure that nothing, is inappropriate is happening on tribal lands, oh man, just that whole process it's intense, and but it has to be done, and it's the stuff that people don't realize, that as a part of the recovery process for fires, and this is before they even open anything up, when all the power lines are on the ground and everything's still dusty and half the things around you are still burning. But in order to get this to start to kick off that process for those tribes, there's just steps that have to be taken. And so, being able to be a part of that is great. I think that the other part of it is there's a lot of youngsters that are learning and have approached and asked, like, Reno, can you help me learn how to do this? And it's like, yeah, come on, because, 47, dude, I ain't trying to be out there for that much longer. Like, this one was hairy because we had trees falling by us, it was like, oh my God. So, I think that, that just that whole process, I think, if you see that, if you see the destruction and the devastation, and it doesn't affect you inside, and it doesn't, if you don't cry when you see it, then you've got problems, and I'm a big ass grown man, that. And when I got up there and saw some of the damage for one of the tribes up north, it really affected me, and just seeing those homes, and thank God they got their pets and they all got out, but just seeing that and knowing what all that means to them, and so, it should affect you, and you should also rely heavily on your traditional knowledge to mitigate that spiritually, so it doesn't bother you too much. So, it's, man, I'm hoping that we get some relief from these fires. I know this is, I'm like one Indian guy, and there's a whole bunch of Indian people all over the country that are dealing with similar things, whether it's a hurricane or a fire or a tornado, and are watching tribal lands and having to, play their part in picking up those pieces. And I think that we don't celebrate those individuals enough, because they deserve it. And I know a bunch of them, they're just totally awesome people that, aren't asking for people to give them recognition, but at the same time, I think the ancestors recognize that and appreciate the work that's done.
Yeah, puts the word first responder into a whole different perspective.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow. But that's neat, though. You are inspiring another generation of what you've been doing for your community in this sense. So, what is this is I wanted to get another hat that you wore this past year that you had the full initiative to do, and it was such a joy and privilege to work with you on this. The Native American Affairs Committee, you called a little special session and to assist us With regards to the National Garden of American Heroes, after the executive order was announced and our little advisory council on historic preservation was included within it, can you explain to us all just that fantastic effort that you put together that literally got the highest praises from folks in the administration, including the Secretary of the Interior?
Yeah, I mean, Indians suffer from a lot of things, and anonymity is one of them. And so when we think about Indian heroes, it's always people telling us who it should be, right? It's, well, this should be your hero, this should be your hero. And it's like, and so I saw the initial the discussions about this, and I kind of thought to myself, oh man, this is an opportunity, and I know a lot of folks that are in positions of authority that can speak on behalf of others, right? Like I can speak on behalf of others, but there's those people who like assume those roles but aren't given the authority. Well, I know people that have the authority, and so we kind of thought about this, and I came to you and Valerie and said, what do you guys think of doing this? And getting some names together from Indian country. I know I can get some relatively quickly, and expanded it out for Native Hawaiians as well. And you gave it the green light. I reached out immediately to some friends, who could speak on behalf of, and helped us develop the list. And the initial list was like 10 people long. It was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then those friends had other tribal leaders call me and say, hey, can you add this person? Hey, can you add this person? The next thing I know, we had this I didn't even know half these people existed, right? We had this really cool list of names that were just like, oh man, just put Indian country into a whole different light when we talk about what our heroes are and who they are and why they're heroes. I think about Katie John and Queen Lilian Kulani and Jim Thorpe. It wasn't just political activists or warriors. It was, in that sense, it was also athletes and people who were the first to do things, and so it was really cool. We brought that list to our committee. The committee had other names too. We added that on there, and oh man, I'm really happy that we have the list that we do. I think it was pretty encompassing of some pretty awesome people, and in some cases we had historic tribal leaders who are well known and taught through history, and we had their grandkids or great grandkids giving us permission to use them, or soldiers in the U.S. Army that did amazing feats, and we had their governors or their tribal chairs saying, yes, you could use this. So it's a strange thing to go through a process like that so quickly and get so many permissions all at the same time and be able to give it to our committee, and then the committee, bless it and move it forward. That was just, that whole process was, I think it was more fun than anything else. I thought it was gonna be stressful, kind of thinking, oh, what am I getting myself into? But no, yeah, that's some good work by our committee during a pandemic, I might add as well.
Yeah, it was really inspiring. And it's, what I like to think the overall effort should be, and to learn from these figures. And so, I mean, we just went straight to the experts and straight to the sources to you, and it couldn't have gone out better. And it was just such a wonderful contribution from the ACHP for this larger effort. So Rick, I will forever be grateful for Reno, your leadership in doing that. I guess final question here, looking ahead, how can Indian tribes and the ACHP further partner to improve the field of historic preservation in our kind of unique capacity in the field of preservation and within the federal government?
Yeah, I think we're entering a whole different, time period with the ACHP. Aimee, you coming in and taking over the leadership and the changes, on the council. And I think for myself, kind of looking at that and wondering to myself, I wonder what this is going to look like. Is it going to change how we interact with each other? And we've had some folks who've been on for a very long time that have retired, as well, that from the agency side. And so I think that I don't think it's going to change. I think we'll continue to have a like-minded group of people that are going to bring perspective into historic preservation. And I think that as long as the ACHP does that, as long as we maintain multiple perspectives, then we'll be all right. And I think we do a good job. And I think, there's a lot of recent votes that demonstrate that, where, in years past, people would have been on other sides of the fence. It would have been, interesting to see how that played out. And I think instead there's a right way to do things, and there's a wrong way to do things. And I think that as long as the ACHP and all of our council members maintain focus on that, historic and prehistoric resources are non-renewable. Once they're gone, they're gone. That little sign that, says that this was, once the Lincoln Monument. Can you imagine that? And the Lincoln Monument once stood here, it doesn't work, or more importantly, when you think of things like the Vietnam Wall and my relatives that are on that wall, and what that means, and then to put just a plaque that says here once stood the Vietnam Wall. When you put the tribal lens on things and you look at it from our perspective, and we have those resources as well, they look different, but we celebrate them just in the same way, and they have the same, deep rooted, soulful meaning to them. And when I talk about all of us having perspective and being open to hearing each other's perspective and understanding and taking the approach of non-renewable resources, then when we come together, right, and we think about the tip of the spear being tribal, then we start to understand, we start to better communicate. And I think that there's going to be times on the council, just like there always have been, when we disagree on things. But I know that I've been blessed in my time on the council to work with people that were always willing to talk and always willing to listen. And from the indications that I see, it looks like our new group is going to be the same way, and I'm pretty happy about that. I'm pretty excited, I think the challenge for all of us is not being able to meet in person. I'd love to meet Rick. He looks like a pretty good guy. Looking at these pictures that you're posting, you guys are obviously having much fun in Florida. And dang, man, it's on fire out here. I wouldn't mind being in Florida, And so I think that's a big part of it. That's kind of like, a real challenge is how do we do these meetings and still maintain, a healthy understanding and respect for each other. So much comes out of those meals that we have, that Kat does. And she's so amazing. Kat is just awesome. And so, we get to know each other better in those meetings. And so in those dinners that we do, it's time to break bread with each other, Aimee. And I look forward to that. And I think that the longer that doesn't take place, the less real understanding and knowledge we will have of each other. And at the end of the day, if the goal is to preserve something together as a group, then it'll be nice to do it together as a group in person when it's safe.
I agree wholeheartedly. We had this discussion about a year ago. Oh, we should try to do more things virtually. And now we have tested that, and we know what kind of works that way and what is much better in person. So
yeah,
totally agree. Oh gosh, Reno, thank you so much. I've just been it's just been so wonderful to know you during this since I started on the council, and I've just enjoyed all of our time together and communications, and I appreciate you doing this today.
Thank you. Happy to do it.